What's up YouTube? We got an amazing update on the Neuralink which was done a couple of days back, and those updates are near to the human testing and gives a lot of thought-provoking applications. Let's see what they have improved over the year. And the Q&A session of the update, which I find had a pretty interesting questions and thoughts, here's what it is.
Just for everyone who does explain at a basic level what a spike is.
Sure. So traditionally, people think of spikes or action potentials as the electrical events that happen in neurons and as the primary form of communication between neurons. And so this is a hysteresis event where you have currents that flow and generate this. You can think of it as being a digital signal, a 1 or a 0 that's being sent in time, where neurons will send that signal to often thousands of recipient neurons.
And the question is, can the Neuralink chip allow you to summon your Tesla telepathically?
Definitely, of course.
You heard it here first. That's a definite 100%. Carlos, that is the answer.
It's just one bit of information.
Yeah, it's very easy. That's an easy one.
Interact with the device.
So there's interesting questions long-term about whether you do decoding on head or on a phone or on a computer. Ultimately, so at 1,000 channels, it's possible to send all the spike data to a phone and do processing there. As this gets bigger and bigger, you're going to be more constrained by the radio, so you're going to want to push more of this on head, and that changes your programming model. But really, the APIs, you're getting either bin spikes, or you're getting raw waveforms, and that's like, you can consume it basically like an audio feed.
Yeah, it's worth noting, like the lossless compression of the data stream is about 100 kilobits with 1,024 channels.
Right now, is the device limited to surface layers of the brain only? Or can we go deeper? And if not now, what's holding us back from going deeper into the brain?
We are planning on modifying the device and the robot to be able to sew into arbitrary depths of the brain. Right now, we're limiting ourselves only to the cortical surface because that simplifies many of the problems involved with going a lot deeper.
And what kinds of things can you solve on the cortical surface versus when you go deeper?
Sure. So a lot of the low-level processing happens in the cortex in terms of motor intentions, sensory information that comes directly in. So your hearing, your auditory percepts, your visual processing, a lot of that happens in the cortex.
I mean, you could solve blindness. You could solve paralysis. You can solve hearing. You can solve a lot just by interfacing with the cortex. And to be clear, we actually do insert, I guess, about 3 or 4 millimeters into the cortex. So these electrodes are sensing from multiple layers within the cortex. There are deeper brain systems that are underneath your cortex, like the hypothalamus, and I think that is something we'd want to interface with for sure, because that's going to be important for curing things like depression, addiction, that kind of thing.
And when you guys say thin, how thin?
How thin? So one strand of your hair is about 100 microns in diameter. We can think about dividing that into 20. So one of the thickness that we recognize about 5 microns, and we have this possibility to go even thinner in the nearest future.
Yeah, we think we can probably go sub-micron in thickness, but obviously, as the thinner you make the wire, the harder it is to sense the signal and to do stimulation, because there's less cross-sectional area for the current to traverse.
One of the things that's allowed us to make such fast progress in the last few months is the use of pigs as a model. And we started out choosing pigs because of the very similar anatomy of their skull to humans, same thickness and similar kind of membrane, dural membrane. But then as time went on, we realized that pigs are actually have amazing other properties. You can train them to walk on treadmills. You can train them to do all kinds of tricks, and also that they have this large representation of the snout in the cortex, which you can very easily stimulate. So the question would be, why are we using pigs? And I think we've even surprised ourselves at how useful they are as a model in this respect. And another important point is that it's very easy to keep pigs happy. They have very low needs, and so we can build an environment in which they have amazingly good welfare.
Yeah,
You seem very happy about food.
Yeah, it's easy to make pigs happy. Basically, they love food. Pigs really love food. This is a true thing about pigs. that they're, yeah, give them like sort of some straw and some things to play with and some friends to hang out with and good food, and they're happy as pigs. And then yeah, pigs are actually quite similar to people. So that's if we're going to figure out things for people, then pigs are a good choice. And they're quite robust creatures, like little tanks. And then I think one of the questions was like, is the device itself robust? And it's like, well, pigs, they bustle around quite a lot, and they bump into things, and they headbutt each other at times, and they're pretty animated. So if the device is lasting in the pig, as it lasted there for 2 months, and still going strong, then that's a good sign that the device is robust for people.
Fantastic. But will this technology ever be used for gaming?
Yeah, probably.
100%.
Yeah. 100%, yeah.
I think that a good benchmark of does it work well in humans is, can a quadriplegic, does it work well enough for them to play StarCraft? I think that's a good functional target.
Yeah. And in terms of upgrades, that's part of why I wanted to show the explanted pig, is to show that you can actually take the device out, and there's no observable behavior change. The pig is as happy as before and healthy, and I think this is going to be important for upgrades, because obviously if you get an early device, then by the time, let's say you get version 1, probably by the time we have version 3 or 4, you want to upgrade. You wouldn't want version 1 of a phone and 10 years later everyone's got version 3 or 4. So it's going to be important to be able to remove the device and upgrade it over time. So over time, the Neuralink would do even more than it did before.
What are the read and write speeds of the device, if you think of it like a computer?
My name is DJ Saw. I'm leading implant electronics development.
Like a chip design.
And a chip designer, engineer.
Yeah.
So the prototype that we were showing, it has 1,024 channels. All of those channels are capable of recording and also stimulating. And in terms of recording, as Paul mentioned, we do have on-chip algorithms to do a level of compression and extracting the signals of interest, in this case, spikes, neural spikes.
Sure.
And those things are actually happening at a much faster speed than your brain even is processing those information.
Yep.
So in terms of the signals that we're collecting, we're digitizing them at 20 kilohertz. Generally, the signals of interest are anywhere between about a millisecond in width, and so we sort of sample it at 20 times that speed. And we have analog to digital converters that divide that into 1024 levels, so 10-bit resolution. And the spike detection is done in less than 900 nanosecond, which is really, really a fast time. And it's only sort of determined by the speed of the clock. And for making sure that our implant is low power, we're running them actually at a very slow speed. And then for stimulation, we can actually create any arbitrary waveforms with about 7 microsecond of resolution. So basically, whatever you want to draw, we can stimulate and generate those pulses through any combination of our electrodes.
There's another question about the integrity of the device, more from a mechanical perspective. So you're replacing a piece of bone and replacing it with an implant. And then the person is going to take that home. How does the integrity of the device fare compared to, I don't know, bone or something similar?
Sure. Well, I think Matt's probably replaced a lot of pieces of skull with plastic and other materials. So I don't know if you can talk about some of those. But yeah, basically, I mean, we know that what the mechanical properties of bone are, and we know what the stresses on the device are going to be. So it's fairly easy to just go from first principles and design for any condition that it might see.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see from the pigs, as I was saying earlier, the implants are obviously very robust because pigs move around vigorously, they roll around, they bang into the wall, they bang into each other. They do like headbutting, and way more than people do. Well, sure. But it's not like the pigs are just walking around very delicately. They're high energy creatures, and I think it's clear that the implants are, has been going for a few months, still going strong. despite a lot of vigorous activity from the pig. And it's difficult. You can't just explain to the pig, hey, you've got an implant in your head, why don't you take care of it? So it's got to be robust against a lot of head impacts, essentially. So I think maybe one of the things that isn't super obvious is that the implant itself is attached to the skull, but the electrodes have long threads. So you can have quite a lot of movement, relative movement between the brain and the skull without putting attention on the electrodes that are inserted in the cortex.
So our first clinical trial is aimed at people with paraplegia or tetraplegia, so cervical spinal cord injury. We're going to enroll, we plan to enroll a small number of patients to make sure the device is safe and that it works in that case.
Yeah, so actually just to elaborate on that, if somebody is like a severe spinal cord injury, to the degree that they have very limited control even over their facial muscles, then but with this implant you can actually think just by thinking you can output words, and you can type, and you can control a computer, control a phone, and which is pretty wild.
Will you be able to save and replay memories in the future?
Yes, I think in the future you'll be able to save and replay memories. I mean, this is obviously sounding increasingly like a Black Mirror episode, but well, I guess it's pretty good at predicting. But yeah, essentially, if you have a whole brain interface, everything that's encoded in memory, you could upload. You could basically store your memories as a backup and restore the memories. And ultimately, you could potentially download them into a new body or into a robot body. The future is going to be weird.
What programming language are you guys using for developing the device?
Several. Yeah, we use several different types of programming languages. So for chip development, a lot of Verilog for doing low-level programming at the kind of the register transfer level. As you go up higher and higher, there are various C, C++, Python. But to be honest, like at the end of the day, it's not which programming language do you know how to use. It's do you know the principles behind coming up with just methods to enable these systems to work. So I think if you have any experience in programming and you've been building things since you're little, you should really come join us.
Yeah, but can I play Crysis?
Eventually.
Yeah, it can play Crysis.
A question that I think is on everyone's mind, no pun intended. What is the security of the device look like? What kind of precautions are being taken, and what does the future look like for the security of the system?
So first and foremost, privacy and security are top priorities at Neuralink, especially given the sensitivity of the data that we're collecting. And one of the things that we're ensuring is to make sure that a lot of the interactions with the brain data is going to be encrypted and authenticated properly. And I think this has been kind of a sort of recurring theme, but one of the things that we have the ability to do at Neuralink is that we work on every layer of the product, from chip design to source code, and it really gives us a unique opportunity to embed security as part of our design from the get-go, and to make sure that there are no single points of failure. So as an example, we can actually completely isolate sensitive modules like the BLE radio by just segregating it out at the hardware level, and really making sure that we protect the I/O to the brain away from any potential attacks, and really minimizing the attack surface. And we have in-house security expertise, and we're also working with external parties to do audits and perform penetration testing.
Estimate of how much it will cost at launch and what price it will reduce to over time?
Well, I think at launch, it's probably going to be, I would say that's not really representative, because at first, I think it's going to be quite expensive, but that price will very rapidly drop. And I think over time, we want to get the cost obviously down as low as possible. But I think inclusive of the automated surgery, I think we want to get the price down to a few $1,000s, something like that. And I think that's possible. I think it should be possible to get it similar to LASIK, and then the device electronics itself, I think will not be very expensive, because it actually does use a lot of the parts that are made in extremely high volume, in tens of millions of units, for smartphones and smartwatches and wearables in general.
And that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. Thank you for watching. Do leave a like, comment, and I'll try to answer as much as possible. And subscribe to have more videos like this.
I like the joke that it turns out that if you bombard Earth with photons for long enough, it'll emit a Tesla.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.